Hey, this is Sean with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.letsgotennis.com. Get yourself a hoodie or a hat. And while you're there, check out the Atlanta Tennis Monsters collection, just in time for Halloween. Today, this is Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hestley. Today's talk will discuss equipment and whether or not you should invest in high-quality sports equipment for your kids. Ben, you ready to talk youth sports?
Yeah, looking forward to talking some youth sports equipment.
All right, today's conversation starts with the question, can better equipment make you a better player? Now, are we taking this literally, Ben? Where are we going with this?
Yeah, I mean, to quickly answer the question, let's just say yes and no. Okay. And the framework for today's topic was a conversation I had with another parent at our club pool. We were hanging out, and of course, if you're hanging out with me, youth sports tend to come up, and so we're having a conversation about baseball. His kid's into baseball. My son obviously plays a lot of baseball, and so we're talking about different equipment and stuff like that, and talking bats and stuff. And he just makes a comment during our conversation like, well, a better bat doesn't make you a better player. To which I was like, well, how do you quantify better?
Right.
I mean, it could. I mean, at first take, let's talk about the mental side of the game, right? If I have a better piece of equipment that I'm going into my game with, then I'm probably going to be a little more confident. I might be willing to take more risks. I might play a little more free, because I have this better piece of equipment. Now, not to mention the fact that, let's use baseball as an example here. I mean, if I'm playing with a better bat, typically that bat's going to be more lively, have more pop, as we like to call it. And that ball that I hit might go 4 feet further than it did with my other bat. So if I'm hitting the ball to the fence with my old bat, and I hit the ball 4 or 5 feet further with my new bat, that could be the difference between a single or a double and a home run. Well, I do feel better now, so it really just depends on how you look at it.
And in that case, I'll ask the literal question, which I read recently. The phrase was, it's going to enhance player skills and abilities. Can I enhance my skills by getting a fancy pair of cleats? Like, I don't think that statement makes a lot of sense. It can improve performance. And I think that's the conversation we're having. It's not going to actually make me better at what I'm doing, right?
Right. So, yeah, absolutely. What you just said, spot on. So it's not going to improve your skill of whatever it is you're doing, but it definitely is going to improve the performance. The question is, as a parent, how much do I need to spend on this performance, and how much enhanced performance does my kid really need? And is what we currently have, going to be just as good and fine for them?
Right. So in that case, I'm looking for the phrase I saw recently is it a competitive edge? And maybe that's a decent way to look at it, to be able to say my bat's a little bit better than your bat. Or in this case, if we look at a bicycle, if we're racing bicycles and my bicycle is better than yours, and the bike itself is technically faster, that's going to give me an edge. That doesn't make me a better cyclist than you, but it can help me win a race.
Yeah, totally. That's why there's an argument. And some people will call it an unfair advantage. Unfair. Well, what's unfair about it?
Right.
Other than I'm more willing to spend a lot of money on a baseball bat or tennis rackets, so
and in that case, should we go ahead and admit that the rich kids have an advantage because
totally.
they can afford the fancy shoes?
Unfortunately, I will say, shouldn't say unfortunately, but not always rich kids. It's people. Yeah. And yes, if you look at studies, that, sports studies, that obviously the kids with a higher income, households with a higher income, that trend typically, is the same, that, the higher the household income, the higher they, or the more they spend on youth sports equipment, And so that's really good studies, by the way, in a company called Project Play, who does all these different studies on youth sports. They show that trend. Basically, the more money I make, the more I'm going to spend on my kids. And that's just typical of how it goes. Thinking about all this and like this sports, does better equipment make you a better player? I'm and giving you more confidence and how to deal with this stuff. I'm reminded of a game I used to play with my juniors, and I did it with advanced juniors, but you could do it with any level junior really. And games called Crappy Racket. And what I would do is I would bring out like the crappiest, like beat up tennis racket. Sometimes it might even be a wood racket that I found in a closet, because all these kids would get all jacked up about their equipment. And I would say, hey, look, here's the deal. We're going to play points, and we'd play points. And I'd put the crappy racket at the net. And if you won the point, if you lost the point, you had to go get the crappy racket and play with that crappy racket till you won a point again. And once you won a point, then you get your racket back. And the kids had fun with it, and it actually was cool because they came up with different strategies. Like, hey, I'm disadvantaged here with this crappy racket. How can I figure out how to maneuver and play? And some people would come to the net and try to volley and play quickly, so they could quickly get done with the crappy racket. Yeah. Some kids would slice and dice, just because the racket was so bad, and they just were trying to get it back in. But anyway, it was a fun exercise for them to do. So just talk about equipment just makes me think of that game.
We play a game called Baby Racket Beatdown, and it's kind of a beat the coach, but I hand one of our coaches a little 23-inch racket or whatever it is, and I play a point against them with their racket, and I play with the little racket. I'm like, guys, the racket only takes you so far. So look, you still can't beat me. Now, granted, these are beginners. Don't get me wrong, I'm not that good, but I can still beat a beginner with a 21-inch racket most of the time. And you have some fun with it. But some of those things aren't necessarily, it's kind of the opposite of what we're saying here is this a sales pitch for better equipment? And I think the answer is no, because do fancy cleats make you faster? Not necessarily, but you might slip less. Your feet might be more comfortable. You might enjoy the sport better. And the real catch now is that going to help me psychologically? When I walk up and I've got my new hockey stick, am I a better player that day because I'm going to whack a puck? I don't know anything about hockey. I'm going to whack the puck better than I've ever whacked the puck before, right? But that's more psychological than anything.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. We've answered that question. Better equipment enhances the performance, right? So then we look at the other side of the coin, which is the training side, right? So because we've already answered that this better enhanced equipment is not a magic pill, right? My ball might travel 4 or 5 feet farther because my bat has more pop, but I'm not really a better hitter than I was before, right? I got this fancy new tennis racket, might make me feel like I can get more top spin or can feel like I can serve the ball harder, and maybe I do to some degree.
But if I ask the question, all of a sudden this week I show up and every ball goes 4 or 5 feet further, is that not the definition of me being a better hitter? The result makes the hitter, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at, hey, we're looking results based.
If we're just looking results based, if I'm just getting a little more rotation on the ball and I've got 3 less unforced errors because I got a slightly better tennis racket and I've strung it properly and I get the right spin, is that not actually me being a better player?
Yes, but let me push back on something you just said earlier about your equipment will only take you so far.
Yeah.
And that's true. The skill is what really matters. And that sometimes we forget about that, of developing the skill and taking this as a process. Yeah, that bat is only going to take you as far as your skill will match it. At some point, you're going to face a pitcher that you're not even going to get to use that bat because it's going to come so fast you can't get around on it. You're going to finally face somebody in tennis that it's not going to matter what racket you have because his serve is going to go whizzing by you every time. So let's look now at the training equipment and what are we doing outside of lessons, outside of a group or team practices. What are we doing at home to help our kid improve their skill?
So I'm looking at my ability to have access. That's not an ability. Do I have access to the fancy training facility or the stuff at home or whatever it is, right? Do I have a fancy ball machine or a batting cage? If I have those things, I have a competitive advantage in my practice. Am I using the wear bands where I've got the string, the strappy things on my waist, and I'm doing all the physical stuff? Or is it just the same thing as anybody being able to go out and for $0 jumping up and down on a box and becoming a better athlete? Does the fancy equipment
Yeah,
really
there's two approaches, right? Think of what comes to my mind when you say that is Rocky 4.
Yeah.
Okay. You got Rocky,
the comparison?
you got Rocky Balboa, hiking up a mountain, running sprints.
Yep.
He's got a net bag of rocks. He's pulling, he's doing push-ups, jump rope, and then you got, Ivan Drago, who's, huge Russian guy. He's got everything's measured, right? They're measuring his punch. He's on a treadmill. Yep. Like there's two, both are great boxers, right? I know this is a fictional movie, but
great example.
It's a great example, right? And so both are great boxers, and both are improving their skill for their sport. They're just going about it with two different approaches. I personally like a hybrid approach. I think if you get too much stuff, it can be too much expense wise. So the first thing I would advise a parent is, what do you have at home? What do you already have, right? Like you said, a box. If you have an at-home gym, like, a lot of adults have at-home gyms, like, can you use some of that stuff to benefit your kid? Can you? And if not, my suggestion is go to Play It Again Sports and places like that. I mean, I admit I am a frequent shopper of Play It Again Sports. They have a rewards program. I'm a member there. Hey, I'm serious. I mean, I'm dead serious. I mean, I just recently, because I'm always, as a coach and a parent of athletes, I'm always, looking to get, say new, not new and better, not new in terms of brand spanking new, but like, okay, I have a need. I have a player that has a need. What can I do? I immediately think, hey man, I'm going to Play It Again Sports. I gave you a good example. I was looking for some hurdles, right? And quick example, looking for some hurdles, just the little 1 foot hurdles that you see a track and field use. A lot of athletes use it just to hop over, right? And work on hopping and jumping skills. And we do a lot where we hop over it and then sprint one way or the other. So I was looking for some, but I was like, I don't want to buy $50 or $100 set of hurdles.
Right.
So I go to Play It Again Sports and I found 2 hurdles, which is really all I need. I don't need 6 hurdles. I need like 2 of them. So I found 2 hurdles at Play It Again Sports for $7. And I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need for $7. Now, I don't know if the hurdles were made in 1970 or made last week, but it doesn't matter. That's what I need. Boom, done.
And those are cones, things, right? We just use cones to jump over the cone.
Yeah, or you could do that. I have cones, or I could just stack cones up and hop over the cones. Yeah, absolutely.
My point being, use what you have. Go watch Rocky 4 if you need to, and get the inspiration to realize you don't need all the fancy stuff. It's nice if you can have it, because maybe it makes it more efficient. Maybe you have a little more data. Maybe your pull-ups don't give you the data as to how many you've done or how many calories you've burned if you don't have the fancy watch or all those kinds of things. But in this case, the training is more about effort. Is there performance enhancing training that the extra equipment might give you a competitive edge? I love your Rocky 4 example. The answer might be no. It might be that you still have to outwork your opponent.
I mean, I'll compliment my son real quick on this. I mean, and we have a lot. I have an at-home gym. I have a bench. I have a barbell. We have a box jump. And by the way, the box I have, if you're interested in box jumps for kids, get the soft ones, get the foam ones. Don't get the hard wooden ones or the metal ones, because if they're really trying to push themselves, you don't want them to bust their knees or shins or anything. So
it hurts when you miss.
I invested in that from a safety standpoint. But to compliment my son, he does push-ups, sit-ups, and squats, just air squats every single night. He has 100 of them. So he says he does it in his room. I trust him. I say, you really doing this? Yeah. He said, yeah. He says, sometimes he doesn't do 100 in a row. He'll do 10 and take a break, and 15 take a break, and 20 take a break. But he'll have a note, just write how many he did. And I'm like, of all the equipment we have at our house and all the equipment I have as a sports coach, it comes down to push-ups, sit-ups, and squats for this kid. And good. If he's motivated to do it and he sees the result and he feels like he's getting better, that's what's going to carry over to the game. And the better equipment, the better what we call in-game equipment will certainly help the performance, but you got to have those skills on the back end, particularly those physical skills. They're going to help you with the skills of your sport.
Yeah, and some of these, the equipment we're talking about is the stick or the shoe or the shirt, the jersey, whatever it is. I don't think getting me a fancy hat is going to make me a better baseball player, but
no, we're talking about the stuff you actually, right. Like for baseball,
feel good about myself.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. The other week, this past weekend, my son had some friends over, and they took. I'll keep a bucket of tennis balls. I use them for various reasons. I keep old tennis ball. I keep a bucket of old tennis balls. I use them for a variety of stuff. But they took a stick, a bat. It's a stick. It's called a stick bat because that's what it is. It's a bat, but it's a stick. Weighs about 12 ounces, and they played wiffle ball with tennis ball. They were pitching with tennis ball. I'm like, man, what a great talk about bat to ball skills. So if you're barreling up a tennis ball with a bat that's like this big around, imagine when you go to your $400 bat that's this big around. Right. That talk about it improving skill that improves performance. There you go, right there.
Yeah, and it takes a stick. Now, granted, you probably bought the fancy version of the stick, but that doesn't mean you can't use a stick you find in the house.
I bought it.
Mother wants you to take
down. My daughter one. So I'll tell you quickly. Got it from Marucci. If anybody's interested, great gift. Okay, it's a stick bat from Marucci. It's only about $40, and you can customize it. So I did. So for Christmas last year, I got my daughter one customized. I got my son one customized. But use that as well. Like another tip for parents, use those gift-giving holidays, those birthdays. Those are great opportunities. They don't need another video game. Okay. They don't need some other silly toy that they're going to throw in the trash the day after their birthday. Think about what you can, and all you got to do is go to Amazon, search soccer training toys or soccer training tools or baseball training toys, like give those as gifts, that use those gift-giving holidays. I always think give somebody something purposeful. If it's something I'm going to throw away tomorrow, then don't give it to me. But if it's something that I can use time and time again, that's going to help me, then that's a great gift. And that's a great opportunity to invest and give kids something that you're probably going to give them something anyways.
Yeah, put some thought into it. And I'll give ourselves a plug. We have a collection in our shop that is training systems and technology. And you want your kid to practice, get them a fancy tennis racket, get them one of those sabers and see if they can hit the ball, one of the spoons to try to hit the ball with. You may find them in the backyard with old tennis balls, playing baseball with it. But you know what? Hit the ball with a stick and it makes you a better whatever sport you play, makes you better at that. And that's just sometimes the fun. I love the story about your son and his friends in the backyard just playing, but really they're practicing for the sport they really enjoy. And even if it's the kid that isn't very good that ends up getting invited because he's a friend, but he might not make the baseball team, maybe next year he does make the baseball team because he ends up playing in the backyard with the kids that have some of the fancy equipment. I remember we used to do that as we'd go to the house of the kid that had all the stuff. And that's where you'd find, oh yeah, I want to play with this thing. Well, my family couldn't necessarily afford it, but if my friend's family could, we were out in the yard with the footballs that would go a little bit further and trying to catch it, all the fancy equipment. Does it really make you faster? Does it really make you better? I think we've kind of said no, but at some level, what about that stick? What about that extra 4 feet? It does make me a little bit better. But go back to Rocky IV. Go back to realizing just outwork your opponent. We interview the professional tennis players and the athletes at the end of the day. Wasn't it the Kobe Bryant? I think it was him that was quoted about getting up earlier. If your opponent's doing this, you need to outwork your opponent.
Yeah.
Forgive me if that wasn't him, because I'm not a basketball guy, but I think it was him.
But
And
Kobe was big on
you're going to outwork somebody.
Yeah, Kobe was big on fundamentals. He loved practicing the fundamentals. The guy would do layups for an hour, seriously. You know, there's a famous interview with him that the interviewer goes out to the court and watches Kobe. They're going to do this interview after practice, after his practice, and he's doing like an individual practice, and practice for like 2 hours. And the guy interviewing him was like, "This is so boring." He's like doing layups and like just dribbling around and shooting and a couple crossover moves, or but free throws, like not a lot of fancy stuff. And he goes, so they go to the interview, and he's like, "Kobe, I got to tell you, man, like you just did some of the most like basic drills. Like, why does the best player in the world do the most basic drills?" And Kobe famously says, "Why do you think I'm the best player in the world?"
The question answers itself.
Yeah, exactly. And then he goes on to say, "The best never get bored with the basics."
Oh, I like that. I like that, because that's a matter of doing it right, all the little things. And can some of these things give you a competitive edge? Yes. But is it just a box that you can jump up on? Is it hurdles or cones? Can you do things with what you already have?
Yeah.
Do what you can with what you have where you are. Or if you got some extra money, you can go buy the fancy stuff. But so Ben, did we answer the question today? Is it one of those yes, no?
I think so. I think we're gonna have parents. Hopefully, we'll have parents digging through their garage, looking for stuff they already have they can use. If you don't have it, then they'll go to Play It Again Sports. And then your next kid's birthday or gift-giving holiday for your kid and your family, hopefully your kid will get some fun sports equipment, sports improvement toys that they can use.
There we go. We answered the question and actionable advice. What else could you want? Ben,
Good
I appreciate it. This has been Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hesley. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, sir.
All right. Bye, guys. Keep working hard.